Well, guys, we're back again. That's right. It's time for another installment of the Top 10. This is the Reserve List Top 10 selling cards from July 19th to the 26th of 2024. And in today's video, there have been quite a few cards on the Reserve List that have caught player attention. Now, which cards are they and how many copies did they sell? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Hi guys, welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and if you come to my channel right now, it's because you want to see the top 10. But a reminder, if you enjoyed today's content, to like and subscribe to the channel. New content every single day. And if you're shopping for any cards and you're doing it with TCG Player, don't forget to use my TCG Player affiliate link. It is found in the description of this video and basically every video I do. Let's start at number 10. Now, the number 10 card is Forian Dread, not from Mirage. This was here last week, okay? This isn't its first time here on the top 10, but it's been off the top 10 for about a year. And here we have, again, 36 copies being sold, and that's a total value of $6,118.92 if it was all near mint copies. Now, the copies being sold are moderately played, light played, and near mint, and even a couple of graded copies. But let's take a closer look at this card and see what we're talking about. As a one casting cost, 12/12 with trample, you've got to use Stifle or some way to stop the triggered ability on the stack, but it says when Phyrexian Dreadnought comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures with total power of 12 or more, or bury the Phyrexian Dreadnought. So you got to find a way to sneak this onto the battlefield and get around that little bit of a nasty effect it has, which obliterates your battlefield. It's ridiculous. But when you can stifle it in, this card's going to just win the game. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our number 9 card. This is Liege of Hollows. This is directly related to what's been going on in Bloomburrow, and this card is one of those cards people have been paying a lot of attention to. Now, $614.25 is not a lot of action, 39 copies, but this card has basically doubled and tripled in value in the last couple of months. This card is $15.75 right now as the average price. The copies being sold, though, are moderately played, so you can find them for around the $10 mark, but after about 90 days, this card's really going to sink down, so just wait. Now, this card is a 2 green, 2 generic summon spirit. If Liege of Hollows is put into a graveyard from play, each player may pay any amount of mana and put that number of squirrel tokens into play. Treat them as 1/1 green creatures. Kind of an insane ability for a 3/4 for 4. This card actually has a lot of power going for it, and it's not even as vanilla as people would think. In a squirrel deck, this is really going to work, and that's why players have turned their attention to it. The sales are going to drop, though. Just hang in there. Now, we're going to take a look at our next card. This is Lotus Veil from Weatherlight. Now, this card comes in with an average price of $29.43, and it had 42 sales this week. Now, that's $1,236 of sales action. This card's been higher, and it's actually sold for a lot more than this. This is a pretty good deal on a card like this. Now, when I look at this card, though, I ask myself, is it going up, is it going down? This card is actually going to go down as well, so don't worry if you want to wait a little while, it's going to drop. Now, Lotus Veil as a land, it comes into play, you got to sacrifice 2 untapped lands or bury the Lotus Veil. It does tap, though, for 3 mana of any one color to add to your mana pool. And there are reasons why you would want land in your graveyard. There are reasons why you would even want the Lotus Veil in your graveyard, because there's ways of copying this card's abilities. And that's why players have been picking up copies for commander decks. Keep an eye on this card. It is going to drop in price if it's a card you're after. There's nothing right now that's going to guarantee it's going to stay at a higher point. The volumes of sales just don't justify it, so don't worry about it. It's going to go back down. Now, when we're taking a look at our next card, this is the Heart of Yava. This one, of course, is directly, again, related to what's been going on with Nadu. 50 copies sold this week. It's only $134.50, but overall, the card's been kind of upticking very slowly. It's at $2.69 on average. And this Old Alliances card, I mean, this is one of those lands I didn't think much of when I was a kid. I did utilize it in some green decks with some of the insects and stuff like that, but I think it was Deadly Insects? That was the one, Deadly Insects. But let's get around that. Heart of Yava. Now, when it comes into play, you got to sacrifice a forest or bury the Heart of Yava. It does tap to add 1 green to your mana pool, and target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. That's not a bad ability, giving any creature a +1/+1, and your target creature, which means you can trigger Nadu effects, so there's a lot of actual little bit of secondary value to this card. I just don't think it's really going to go above the $5 mark, and I don't think this is the time that it's going to happen with people wondering if Nadu is going to get banned or not. So let's enjoy the action. Let's see what's going to happen, because Magic is an ever-changing world. Now, for our next card, it's Due From Homelands. This card's seen a lot of action recently, and a couple of buyouts the last couple of weeks. Now, 52 copies this week, $761.80 of total sales value. This thing used to be like a $5 card. It's been as high as like 75 bucks though. Don't forget that, okay? Now, with the value lost and what this card could do in the future means that players are hedging their bets and buying a few extra copies. Whoever did the buyout last week and bought like a couple hundred copies, that's a little more insane. That's a lot of value being spent, and you're hoping to get a return on that years from now whenever they decide to make enough Minotaurs to make tribal decks. Will it happen? Yes. Will it happen in a time frame we can expect? No, we'd have no idea when they could do it. This could show up next year for all we know, and this card goes to 500 bucks. Now, let's go ahead and drop in and take a look at Volroth Stronghold from Stronghold. Now, this card's $85.97 on average. It had 56 sales this week, and I have mentioned it because it had a lot of off-market sales that didn't quite make the top 10 each week, but it was very consistent with its sales volumes. Now, it's $4,814.32. Now, this card does tap for colorless mana, but it also can pay 1 black, tap a generic, and tap the land. Put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. That is something nobody should ignore if you're splashing black or playing with a black deck. This card has value that just players don't realize until it's too late. When you see this on the board, you know somebody's building with it, okay? You know they've put it here for a specific reason, and that just gives you an extra little bit of oomph when you want to get your creatures returned from the graveyard, or you don't want a creature to be exiled if somebody's blowing up your graveyard. You can save it with this card. Very nice. Now, for our next card, you should have expected it. Deranged Hermit is still here, guys. It's back up to $85.55 US. It still had 81 sales, which is $6,929.55. This is all related to Commander, Bloomburrow, and, of course, the pre-con decks and what players are doing with the squirrels. So, squirrels have been a big thing. We saw it in yesterday's sales for the Bloomburrow, and now we're seeing it again here with the Legion Hollows as well as Deranged Hermit. This is not really unexpected. I just didn't expect to see this high of sales volumes here at pre-release weekend. Now, Deranged Hermit is 2 green, 3 generic. It's a 1/1. It says Summon Elf. It has Echo, which means you got to pay it again or it's going to go away. But when Deranged Hermit comes into play, you get 4 squirrel tokens, and they're 1/1 green creatures. And as long as the Deranged Hermit's around, all squirrels get +1/+1. Now, bouncing him is a nice thing. Being able to get the +1/+1 is a bonus. His 1/1 as himself means absolutely nothing. That's not why players want him. Go Squirrels. Now, we're dropping in and we're getting closer. This is the Vodon War Machine. This is a Fallen Empires card, and this is strictly a fun buyout by somebody because it only costs them 69 bucks to get 100 copies of this card. Now, if you're wondering why, who knows why? People like to collect things. I know I do. Now, this thing at 69 cents, the 100 copies, it is a 2 blue, 1 generic card from Fallen Empires. And in case you've forgotten this card, let's take a closer look and see what we're talking about. Artwork, very funny. You got all kinds of merfolk just hanging out there doing their thing. It is a summon wall. It's a 0/4. It says 0. Tap target merfolk you control to allow the Vodon War Machine to attack this turn. And give the machine a +2/+1. So you can do one or the other. Attack this turn or give it. So you got to have a lot of merfolk. But if the machine dies, all the merfolk die too. So it never really got a place in the world of what we're doing. But at the same time, some player wants to have some fun with it. Now, okay, number 2, we've got the Seeds of Innocence. 112 copies, $2,319.52. Here's the thing. The price is dropping and it shouldn't be. Let me explain. There is not enough copies out there. There is none available. Okay, you got like 20, 30 copies that are available on the open market right now on things like TCG Player. This means a card like Seeds of Innocence, which of course players are buying for a specific reason in Commander. We are looking at this card and we are understanding that the supply-demand thing doesn't justify what's happening with the price. So do not expect the price to really go down the secondary market, even though something like MTG stock says it is going down. It's really not. So keep an eye on the card. If you have it, you're still doing pretty good. If you're waiting for this card to get cheap, you got about 90 days. You got to wait, okay? Now, our number 1 card this week is Gscepter, okay? This is from Alliances. This is old school, and this has a lot to do with a card from Bloomburrow in Commander, okay? This comes with flubs. Now, the flubs card here, let me pop this up for you. Now, the Gscepter had 420 sales, which is $5,455. Flubs here as a commander card has a nice ability that says you get to draw cards if you have no cards in hand. So you can actually bury your cards with Gscepter just to allow yourself to draw more cards. By the way, that also works with another draw card, and of course that is going to be the Biblioplex. Keep that in mind because they seem to be getting a lot of sales lately, and it's like a 10-cent card. Now, the Scepter here, as a 0 casting cost artifact, says put any card face down under Gscepter. You can look at that card anytime, and of course you can return a card to your hand if you need to. If the Gscepter gets destroyed though, all those cards go to your graveyard. That's a lot going on with this card, and a lot of players are building with it. Another prime example of what happens to a reserve list card when a new commander card comes around to make that card valuable again. Gscepter as a 0 casting cost artifact. I remember back in the day, and honestly I think I have like 20 copies hanging around. And those cards were like 10 cents. They were worth nothing. They were kind of a novelty card, but 0 casting cost artifacts kind of always had a place in these artifact decks once in a while. But the idea of the Flubs card that lets you play an additional land every turn, and if you play a land that had no cards in hand, then you get to draw another card. You could see how this could become a real thing, and the Scepter is going to allow you that little bit of an edge. Along with cards like the Biblioplex that say if you have no cards in hand, you can tap it to draw a card. It means you've got a little bit more going on, and it's interesting to see how players are deciding to build with old reserve list cards. I love to see it happen, and when you see a card buy out like this and that many copies move on the needle, of course the price is going to spike, and it's going to spike sharp because the supply and demand means players don't have that card just sitting readily available in a pile or in a trade binder. It's probably in some bulk bin somewhere that people have overlooked for a very long time. So if you're looking for that card, if you want to build with Flubs, your best bet is to just hang on. History has shown us that these combinations do not retain value long term. They eventually go back down. So patience is your friend in the end when you're looking at cards like this or getting combination deals like this put together. I have very seldom seen a card stay of high value on a secondary market when you see a first printing of a card come around. When you see a card come in that makes a reserve list card valuable, the initial shock and awe of that is awesome, but then the novelty wears off and you get the card back to a reasonable price. Just look at things like Soldevi Digger. It's really come back down, and that doesn't mean it won't go back up again. It just means right now nobody's paying attention to it. So just wait for it, you'll get that card. So either way, the market shows us there was a lot of sales going on, not a lot of high value targets this week, but still a very interesting amount of cards related to Bloomburrow sales, commander deck building, and of course, no legacy, no vintage, no mega sales on that aspect, which is interesting, right? I mean, Bloomburrow has taken it by storm, guys. Crazy. Thanks again for hanging out. Thanks for being here with me on the channel. I look forward to seeing you guys on the live stream tonight, every Sunday, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the end of the video. You're here hanging out with the Moxman as we look at all the amazing patrons, the supporters of this channel that make it happen each and every day. Because without these patrons, we wouldn't have much of a channel now, would we? Without that support, daily uploaded content would not be happening. So thanks again to my patrons. Thanks for being supporters of my channel and my efforts here on YouTube. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video. Have a great one. Was that a got you moment? The Scepter? Because somebody figured it out, right? Somebody got in there and made it happen. And such low inventory, it just spikes through the roof. Now, I understand $15 isn't a major spike, guys. I get it. Ramble jamble! But it is. When the card was worth next to nothing. And the speculators jump in and all these sales start racking up. Remember, the FOMO effect takes in all the time. What people don't realize is that the card's going to go back down. It's just not going to go back down right away. And people in today's society don't have the patience to wait. They're going to dive in and buy the card at the high price, only to see it fall back down. But they don't care because it's 15 bucks. It's not going to be that, it's not going to make or break their day. It's not going to make or break their rent in most cases. It's just going to be that experience where I want the card now. That now society pays for it on the chin every time. And the fact that it's an aha moment, like we saw this with other cards. We've seen this, and there's been a lot of them this year that have come around, from Doctor Who with the Soldevi Digger, all the way through now Seeds of Innocence, where we're jumping over here, and really, Flubs? Who knew? But somebody figured it out. Guys, awesome. Loved hanging out with you. Have an awesome day.